like opinionated, very like you speak with conviction and when we feel like we believe something. So I feel like
Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Book 91. We're talking to you guys about Married at First Sight. We're dealing specifically with Michael and Jasmina. And I've asked this question, the fact that these two opinionated people, how would they get along? Because when you have strong opinions as these two do, you're likely to clash. The definition of opinion is a view or a judgment formed about something, not necessarily based on fact or knowledge. So sometimes, we can have strong opinions on certain things. Doesn't mean it's actually rooted in anything, right? Sometimes it can be pure emotion. But with Michael and Jasmina, they're going to be opposing forces to one another. And there was something that happened on this particular scene that I want to home into that will potentially be a hindrance towards them moving forward. So if you're new to the channel, do me a favor, like it, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification of uploads. We appreciate you guys. Stay locked and stay loaded.
Little Black Book, you know what time it is.
Yes, talking about Michael and Jasmina. I want to just play this little clip here so we can get a little context of where we are.
in that regard, we're kind of the same as well. You get what I'm saying?
Do you find like it's a challenge with you guys are both opinionated?
Now, I want to pause it there because just before that, Michael has just let us know that, you know what, we both speak strongly, we both speak with conviction, and he's talking about their opinions, right? That both of them have that, strength in their opinions, right? Now, bear in mind, with the evidence that we've seen for the last 2 weeks, who would you say at this current form and this current time can give both sides of an argument? I personally wouldn't say Jasmina, because we've seen the first argument they ever had. She couldn't see both sides. She saw one side, her own. And the second argument, it's a toss-up between the two of them, right? So if anybody's going to brag, it wouldn't be Jasmina. Can't say it's Michael either. I don't think any of them should be bragging about being able to hold two sides of the coin necessarily, but certainly not Jasmina, right? And in this scene, we're going to see her begin to make a difference between herself and Michael. She feels that she can hold both sides of the argument, and I'm confused by that because you didn't do that. But it may be that they're having other discussions and it feels like he's a bit more one-sided than usual. But just going by what we've seen on the clips, I haven't seen Jasmina be necessarily open-minded to both sides. Let's have a little look at what I'm talking about and we'll dive a little bit deeper.
I don't know. I feel like I'm able sometimes to see both sides, and sometimes he's just like, nah. Like this.
Now, I think unless this conversation is being had in the background and we're not seeing, in both arguments, Jasmina actually failed to be able to see both sides. In fact, when he came onto her side to reason with her and say, do you know what, I actually hear what you're saying, on the second argument, she still tried to argue with him. She got locked into being right rather than actually trying to make sure what's best for the relationship by deciphering how to move forward with this particular incident. And I think that's really important because when we look at relationships, sometimes we can have an air of superiority in the relationship, and actually that can be a downfall of a relationship. I'm not saying that Michael is innocent. By the way, listen, from what we know, Michael can get hot-headed, he can get angry, he can get frustrated, and that surely must be playing behind the scenes in terms of some of their conversations, in terms of some of their arguments, that he comes across that way. And it can be very difficult to argue with somebody who gets so irate so quickly or so irate that you can't really talk to them. So that's a fair point. But to try and isolate the situation as if you yourself hold both parties or both sides better than the other person, I'm looking at you like, darling, not with examples we have seen. From what we can see on the camera, that's not how it looks. Now, again, it might be different. Maybe he's playing for the cameras. Maybe he's playing for the cameras then, right? But from what I can see, I don't see someone who has played both sides correctly. Let's have a look.
This is how it is. This is what you did, type of thing. And I'm like,
Now, if you listen to what she said, the example was not about arguments, but specifically a situation where it involves both of them. So let's say, for instance, the last argument where he said, obviously, how they had an argument. He said, okay, I saw it from this point of view. I felt like I deserved an apology because X, Y, Z. That's the kind of thing she's responding to, not necessarily an argument between the two of them where it may not involve them being hurt specifically, but an actual argument where there's situations where there's arguments that don't involve you and involve you emotionally. But she's specifically talking about arguments that involve the both of them, that involve emotional pain, that involve them being personally invested due to them it being about them. Let's go slightly back. I want to just go slightly back and look at the body language here. When this conversation starts off, I want you to watch what Jasmina does in response. She's already ready to go. Let's go.
You know what I'm saying?
Do you find like it's a challenge with you guys are both opinionated?
I don't know.
So if you notice where she looks up into the sky before she begins to speak, she goes, I don't know. And often it's an indication that it's going to be a tough conversation, or what you're thinking about what you're going to say. Sometimes it's kind of awkward to look someone dead in the eye and then be like, I don't know, because it can come off a little bit very serious and very harsh. Whereas if you look up in the sky, it's almost like you're giving yourself time, like, I don't know, and then you come down. That's how people normally kind of operate when it's going to be a deep conversation, or a conversation that could offend or hurt someone, or hurt someone's feelings. You tend to kind of go, look up, take a bit of time. Okay. I mean, what I would say in this situation is, and it just gives you that little few extra seconds to just really gather your thoughts before you answer the question. So that was what I noticed before she answered.
I feel like I'm able sometimes to see both sides, and sometimes he's just like, nah.
Again, so, as she just explained about seeing both sides, and he's like, nah. But what's important is pay attention to what she says next as an example. It's a very acute example, very quickly, but she gives an example.
Like, this is how it is, this is what you did type of thing. And I'm like...
And she's referring to the past argument, where it's like, oh, this is what you did, da-da-da-da. And she goes, like, she's still ruminating about that last argument. She's still ruffling about that last argument. That's what's on her mind. On her mind, when she's answering that question, she's still ruining and still brewing about that last argument. She hasn't let it go. Okay? That's why she used that as an example. All right? That I'm right and da-da-da. She's still festering over that argument. And it does happen in relationships because, sometimes you may feel like the conclusion wasn't reached. But that's why I was saying that, imagine, we saw something similar, with the first argument where she walked away and it could have been that Michael held on to his argument and brought it up for the second argument. It could have been. But we don't have that necessarily that evidence, but it could have been. Honestly, could have been. But what we see here is that she definitely at least alluded towards the last argument with what she actually defined and said as, in this particular part, right?
That's funny.
No, not even.
Because I think
and if you see the energy she's saying, no, not even. She's that's brewing. She's still brewing. Okay, she's still annoyed about it because it should be more lighter. Once you've finished it and healed from it and it's gone past, you should still be lighter with it. She's not lighter with it, meaning that she's still in the mood about it. And she actually says that later on in the episode, that she's still in the mood. And I'm guessing it's obviously happened the night before, so they haven't really at least we haven't resolved their emotions towards it, at least from Jasmina's side. But she's claiming that she can see both sides. A little bit of self-awareness will go a long way. Just saying, a little bit of self-awareness will actually help here. Sometimes we think we're better than we actually are. And that can sometimes be the premise of a lot of our arguments. We think we're superior, we think we're better, we think we know it all. And that can be very frustrating for the other person as well. So, because we heard later on Michael explain what he had learned. He said, listen, hey, look, the way I communicate at times, it could be a little bit aggressive. I need to chill on that. Let's listen.
could think the same about you.
I'm sure you can.
I think we're the same in that regard.
Jasmine.
So he goes and says, obviously, I think that's the same, I can say the same about you. And she's like, I guess you can. Yeah, so then why did you say that then? Why did you say it first time round that I think I'm better at? No, that's what, do you know what I mean? Like, if you agree that point, that's the whole point. You didn't make that first, the first comment that you made was to put yourself on a pedestal in regards to him. And if you are going to do that, it should be plain. Everybody knows that. But it clearly wasn't. And Dusty kind of brought it up in a very subtle way. And I just noticed that and I said, oh, okay. I'm seeing how the dynamics can play out here. Again, this is not saying that Michael's perfect. We're just saying what I'm seeing in front of me on the screen.
Nina and Mike, at least they know, why they were matched and their similarities. But, she just married a stranger, so... Look,
and, even later on the table, Michael and Jasmina, when they were asking questions, they actually, they got to have a little bit of their conversation. He apologized in a sense, or at least said some words that meant like he knew that he needs to do better, right? He knew he had to do better than what he was doing in regards to his communication levels, which for me, fine. If you're gonna be in that situation, you should be able to recognize your shortcomings. That's the best thing. Let me just see if I can get the little clip here. Oh man, I don't know if it was here. Oh, I think I missed it. I can't find it before I get copyrighted. But I wanted to kind of show the clip a little bit. But we can talk a little bit about their scene at the water pool, because I think that was also a good instance. I think again of communication. They were trying to connect. At least they were trying to connect a little bit. Let's have a little look at this.
I do think that Alyssa was done from day one. So
wrong part of the show, baby.
I still got some trauma from it. Can I have a hug or something?
okay.
I mean, I saw it and I said, because he was trying to foster that. He was trying to get her to break that emotional wall to give him a little bit of affection. And I think this is where they're going to have to do some work, some serious work, in order to come together. How are they going to maneuver this aspect in terms of developing the emotional connection? Because it seems like that's where they have disparaging experiences, right? Like we said last week, that it seems like she doesn't do the emotions too tough, but he does emotions a lot. And so that need for, I had trauma, can I have a little bit of a hug? That's what he requires from a partner. He wants that affectionate behavior. Jasmina doesn't give that naturally. That's something they're going to have to work on, communicate on, discuss, because it won't just come out the blue. And again, it will take some work to do that as well, because sometimes people are hiding behind trauma as to why they don't do physical contact, or why they don't do emotions very well, or why they don't do lovey-dovey very well. It may have to do some work around that as well.
Trying to see if I can carve our...
I don't know if that pause was on purpose or was edited or whatever, just to kind of give it a bit more of a, awkward moment. But, I still have hope out for them. I think two opinionated people, the difficulty with two opinionated people is that, they want to win oftentimes, right? They think their judgment is correct. They think their judgment is the right one. And, without them modeling ideal conversational strategies, without there being a respect in the confrontation between the two of them, this is going to always lead and bleed into massive arguments, because when people are opinionated, they lead by how they feel, and when they feel, they tend to judge. And when people are feeling judged, people feel like they have no room to maneuver and they feel boxed in. And that can be claustrophobic emotionally, and that can cause breakdowns in relationships as well. So, listen, I don't want to go on too long. I think Jasmina and Michael got a lot of work to do, to go forward. Again, I don't know if they're in a better position than we saw last week, but they're going to need some input from the experts in order to, I think, make it through to the end. But listen, like it, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification of uploads. We appreciate you guys. Stay locked and stay loaded.
Little black girl, you know what